The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base in Afghanistan. Commander Jake Morrison walked through the equipment area, checking on his team's preparations for the upcoming mission. The sound of metal against cloth caught his attention. He turned to see a figure hunched over a massive rifle, working with careful precision. The person cleaning the Barrett .50 caliber sniper rifle was not who he expected. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos moved her cloth in smooth, practiced motions along the barrel. Her hands showed the calluses of someone who had spent countless hours with weapons, but her technique was different from what Morrison usually observed. There was an almost artistic quality to how she maintained the rifle. Morrison had heard about Santos when she joined his unit 3 weeks ago. The paperwork said she was a communications specialist with additional training in marksmanship. What the paperwork didn't capture was the quiet intensity she brought to everything she touched. Other soldiers respected her, but few really knew her story. As he watched, Santos disassembled the rifle with movements that seemed automatic. She had done this thousands of times before. Each piece was cleaned, inspected, and carefully reassembled. Morrison noticed she paid special attention to the scope, adjusting it with tiny movements that most people would miss. The Barrett .50 was not a standard weapon for communication specialists. This rifle could hit targets over a mile away in the right hands. It weighed 30 pounds and fired bullets that could penetrate armor and concrete. Most soldiers treated it with respect mixed with fear. Santos handled it like an extension of herself. Morrison approached quietly, not wanting to disturb her concentration. Santos looked up when his shadow fell across her workspace. Her dark eyes showed no surprise at seeing her commanding officer. She simply nodded and continued her work. "Good morning, Sergeant," Morrison said. "That's some impressive maintenance work." "Thank you, sir," Santos replied, her voice steady and professional. "A weapon is only as reliable as the care it receives." Morrison studied the rifle setup. Santos had modified several components that weren't standard issue. The bipod was a custom model designed for extreme accuracy. The scope was military grade but had additional features Morrison had only seen used by special operations snipers. "Where did you learn to work on the Barrett system?" Morrison asked. Santos paused in her cleaning for just a moment. "Various places, sir. Training courses, field experience, and some personal study." Her answer was technically correct but clearly incomplete. Morrison sensed there was much more to her story. In his 15 years of military service, he had learned to read people quickly. Santos was hiding something, but it wasn't dangerous or dishonest. It was more like she was protecting herself from assumptions others might make. The other members of Morrison's team began arriving for the morning briefing. Corporal Davis, their medic, nodded to Santos as he passed. Private Chen, their tech specialist, stopped to admire the rifle setup. Santos acknowledged them but kept working. Morrison noticed how the team dynamics had shifted since Santos arrived. The men respected her competence, but they hadn't fully accepted her as an equal. This was common when new members joined established units. What was uncommon was how Santos seemed completely unbothered by their caution. "Sergeant," Morrison said, "I'd like you to join today's mission planning session. We're looking at a reconnaissance operation that might benefit from long-range observation capabilities." Santos looked up from the rifle, meeting his eyes directly. "I would be honored to contribute, sir." As Morrison walked away, he found himself thinking about Santos and her unusual skill set. Communications specialists didn't usually maintain sniper rifles with such expertise. There was clearly more to her background than her official records indicated. The morning briefing would reveal whether his instincts about Santos were correct. Morrison had a feeling that this quiet, methodical soldier was about to surprise everyone, including himself. The Barrett .50 she maintained so carefully might soon prove its worth in ways none of them expected. Something told Morrison that Santos was not just another soldier passing through his unit. The way she handled that rifle suggested she had capabilities that could change everything for his team. He looked forward to discovering what those capabilities truly were. The briefing room filled with the usual pre-mission tension. Morrison spread maps across the table while his team gathered around. Santos sat quietly at the back, notebook ready, her Barrett rifle case leaning against the wall beside her. "Intelligence reports enemy movement in the Kandahar Valley," Morrison began, pointing to a mountainous region on the map. "We need eyes on their supply routes without getting too close. The terrain is rough with sight lines extending several kilometers. Corporal Davis studied the elevation markers. Sir, the closest we can position traditional observation posts is about 800 meters from the target area. That's not close enough for detailed intelligence gathering. Morrison nodded. This was exactly the problem he had expected. What about using the ridgeline here? He indicated a position on the map. It's higher elevation, about 2 kilometers from the main road. Private Chen shook his head. The approach to that ridge is completely exposed, sir. Enemy patrols would spot us long before we could establish position. The room fell silent as the team considered their limited options. This was a common problem in Afghanistan's mountainous terrain. You needed to get close enough to gather useful intelligence, but close enough usually meant too close for safety. Santos cleared her throat quietly. Sir, may I suggest an alternative approach? Morrison looked up, curious. Go ahead, Sergeant. Santos moved to the map, her finger tracing a path to a different ridgeline. This position is approximately 300 meters from the target area. The approach is concealed by these rock formations, and the elevation provides clear sight lines across the entire valley. Davis frowned. That's over 2 miles, Santos. We can't gather detailed intelligence from that distance with standard equipment. Santos met his gaze calmly. Standard equipment, no. But with proper optics and the right weapon system, that distance becomes very manageable. Morrison felt his pulse quicken. You're talking about extreme long-range observation. That requires specialized skills. Yes, sir, Santos replied simply. It does. The implication hung in the air. Morrison looked at the Barrett case, then back at Santos. Sergeant, what exactly is your background with long-range systems? Santos hesitated for just a moment. I spent 2 years with a specialized unit before transferring to communications. During that time, I completed advanced marksmanship training and logged over 200 hours of field time with the Barrett system. Chen whistled softly. 200 hours? That's serious time behind a scope. Morrison studied Santos carefully. What was your longest confirmed observation range with that unit? 3,100 meters, sir. Positive target identification and continuous monitoring for 6 hours. The room went completely quiet. 3,100 meters was well beyond what most soldiers could even imagine, let alone execute successfully. Davis and Chen exchanged glances that mixed respect with disbelief. Morrison made his decision. All right, Sergeant. Show us how this would work. Santos returned to the map with new confidence. The key is positioning and patience. This ridge offers natural concealment and multiple escape routes. The Barrett's optics can clearly identify individual faces at 300 meters under good conditions. She traced sight lines across the map with practiced precision. From this position, we can monitor the entire valley, track movement patterns, and identify high-value targets without any risk of detection. Davis leaned forward, now genuinely interested. What about environmental factors? Wind, temperature, humidity, all critical, Santos acknowledged, but manageable with proper preparation and real-time adjustments. The Barrett system is designed for exactly these conditions. Morrison felt excitement building. This could solve multiple problems at once. How long would you need to establish position and begin effective observation? 6 hours for approach and setup, sir. Then continuous monitoring for as long as required. Chen looked impressed despite himself. You really think you can identify targets clearly from over 2 miles away? Santos met his eyes with quiet confidence. I know I can. Morrison made his decision. We go with Santos's plan. She'll take point on long-range observation while the rest of us provide security and support from secondary positions. As the team began detailed planning, Morrison watched Santos work. Her knowledge of ballistics, environmental factors, and tactical positioning was clearly beyond what any communications specialist should possess. Whatever her previous unit had been, they had trained her exceptionally well. The mission was becoming more interesting by the minute. Morrison had a strong feeling that Santos was about to demonstrate capabilities that would surprise everyone, including enemy forces who had no idea they were about to be watched from an impossible distance. The situation in the valley changed rapidly. Santos tracked the incoming vehicles with mechanical precision, providing Morrison with intelligence that painted an increasingly serious picture. What they were witnessing was no routine operation. Commander, the lead vehicle contains at least 3 high-value individuals, Santos reported. Based on the security formation and deference patterns I'm observing, these are significant leadership figures. Morrison coordinated with headquarters while Santos continued her observation. The intelligence flowing from her position was detailed enough to guide major strategic decisions. Military commanders hundreds of miles away were making plans based on what Santos could see through her scope. New development, Santos whispered. They're setting up communication equipment. Large satellite dish, multiple radio arrays. This is becoming a command center. Through his own binoculars, Morrison could barely distinguish the vehicles from the buildings. Santos was identifying specific equipment and predicting enemy intentions with information that should have been impossible to gather from their distance. The afternoon wore on with Santos providing continuous intelligence updates. She identified weapons caches, tracked personnel movements, and even interpreted conversations by observing body language and group dynamics. Her reports were so detailed that headquarters began requesting verification of her position and equipment. "Sergeant," Morrison said during a brief communication break, "Headquarters is having trouble believing the level of detail in our reports. They want confirmation of our observation capabilities." Santos made a slight adjustment to her scope. "Sir, would you like me to provide a demonstration?" Before Morrison could respond, Santos continued, "The man in the blue shirt who just exited the third building has a distinctive limp favoring his left leg. He's carrying a folder with approximately 20 pages. The vehicle he's approaching has a damaged left front fender and a crack in the windshield shaped like a lightning bolt." Morrison relayed this information to headquarters and waited. Within minutes, confirmation came back. Satellite imagery verified every detail Santos had described. The precision was so accurate that intelligence analysts were calling it impossible. "Santos," Morrison said quietly, "what exactly were you doing in your previous unit?" Santos remained focused on her scope. "Counter-sniper operations, sir. When someone can hit targets from extreme distances, you need someone who can find them from even further away." That explained everything and nothing. Counter-sniper work required capabilities beyond normal military training. Santos had been hunting people who specialized in what she was now demonstrating. The skills Morrison was witnessing had been developed to save lives by finding threats before they could strike. "Contact," Santos said suddenly, her voice taking on a different tone. "Sniper position, 11 o'clock, approximately 2,800 meters. He's targeting our location." Morrison felt ice in his veins. "Are you certain?" "Positive. Male, experienced based on his positioning and equipment. He's using a Soviet-era Dragunov system, and he's been tracking our position for at least 10 minutes. Morrison had to make an immediate decision. Their location was compromised, but Santos was providing intelligence too valuable to abandon. "Options, Sergeant?" Santos remained completely calm. "He doesn't know my exact position yet, sir. His scope is good, but not good enough to spot me from that distance. However, he will find me eventually. How long do we have?" "Unknown, sir. But I can eliminate the threat if you authorize it." Morrison felt the weight of command. Santos was asking permission to take a shot across a distance that challenged belief. If she missed, their position would be completely compromised. If she didn't try, they would eventually be found anyway. "What's the range to target?" Morrison asked. 3,470 meters, sir. Wind is variable, temperature is dropping, and the angle is steep. Difficult shot, but within my capabilities. Morrison had seen Santos's confidence throughout the day, but this was different. She was proposing to eliminate a threat from a distance beyond what most people considered possible. The enemy sniper was skilled enough to find their position, but Santos was claiming she could hit him from nearly 3.5 kilometers away. "Sergeant, that's over 2 miles. Are you certain about this?" Santos made a final adjustment to her scope. "Sir, my longest confirmed elimination in my previous unit was 3,347 meters. This shot is within my established capabilities." Morrison stared at Santos. She had just revealed something extraordinary. A confirmed kill at 3,347 meters would place her among the most capable snipers in military history. Such achievements were rare enough to be legendary. "You've made that shot before?" Morrison asked. "Yes, sir. Similar conditions, similar equipment, similar threat." Morrison realized he was working with someone whose capabilities extended far beyond anything in her official records. Santos wasn't just a communications specialist with sniper training. She was apparently among the most skilled long-range marksmen in the entire military. The enemy sniper continued searching for their position. Santos waited for Morrison's decision with the same calm patience she had shown all day. Whatever her background truly was, she had been preparing for exactly this moment. Morrison made his choice. The team moved out before dawn, their boots crunching softly on the rocky terrain. Santos carried her Barrett rifle with the same casual efficiency Morrison had observed during her maintenance routine. The weapon seemed to belong with her, neither burden nor tool, but something more personal. The approach to the ridge took 4 hours of careful movement through terrain that would challenge experienced mountain climbers. Santos navigated the route with confidence that suggested she had studied every inch of the path before suggesting it. Morrison began to understand that her planning had been far more thorough than she had initially revealed. As they climbed, Morrison watched Santos manage the 30-pound rifle across terrain that exhausted other team members carrying much lighter loads. She moved with economy of motion, never rushing, never struggling, simply progressing steadily upward. "How did you learn to move like that?" Corporal Davis asked during a brief rest stop. Santos checked her rifle's condition before answering. "Necessity. My previous unit spent a lot of time in places where making noise or moving inefficiently could get everyone killed." Davis nodded, but Morrison caught the careful way Santos phrased her answer. She was revealing information without actually explaining anything. Her previous unit remained a mystery, and Morrison suspected it would stay that way. The final approach to the ridge required them to crawl the last 200 meters. Santos moved ahead to establish the observation position, while Morrison and the others secured the area. Through his binoculars, Morrison watched Santos work. She selected her exact position with the care of an artist choosing the perfect angle for a painting. Every factor seemed to matter: wind direction, sun position, background terrain, escape routes. Santos spent 20 minutes just studying the ground before committing to a spot. The rifle setup took another 30 minutes. Santos assembled a shooting platform that seemed far more sophisticated than standard military equipment. She had brought components Morrison didn't recognize, pieces that transformed the Barrett system into something approaching a precision instrument. When Santos finally settled behind the scope, something changed in her entire posture. The casual soldier Morrison had been observing disappeared, replaced by someone who seemed to merge with the rifle itself. Her breathing became controlled and rhythmic, her movements reduced to tiny, precise adjustments. Morrison positioned himself 20 meters away with his own binoculars focused on the valley below. At first, he saw nothing unusual. The distance made everything appear small and indistinct. He wondered if Santos could really gather useful intelligence from so far away. "Target acquired," Santos whispered into her radio. "Adult male, approximately 40 years old, distinctive facial scar, carrying what appears to be a radio communication device." Morrison strained to see what she was describing. Through his binoculars, he could barely make out human figures moving near buildings far below. Santos was not just seeing these people clearly, she was identifying specific details that would be impossible for anyone else to observe. "Second target," Santos continued. "Female, early 30s, carrying a medical bag. She's moving between buildings in what appears to be a medical treatment pattern." Over the next hour, Santos provided a steady stream of detailed intelligence. She identified weapon types, estimated ages, and physical characteristics, tracked movement patterns, and even observed conversations by reading body language. Her radio reports painted a complete picture of enemy activities in the valley. Morrison realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. Santos wasn't just good at long-range observation. She was operating at a level that bordered on superhuman. The distance that made normal reconnaissance impossible was apparently just another day at the office for her. "Commander," Santos said quietly, "we have a problem." Morrison moved closer to her position. "What is it?" "Large group approaching from the east. Military vehicles, at least 20 personnel. They're heading directly for the village where our primary targets are located." Morrison raised his binoculars but could see only dust clouds in the distance. "How can you be certain about the numbers?" Santos made a minor adjustment to her scope. "Vehicle spacing, dust patterns, and I can see individual soldiers in the lead truck. This is a significant operation, not a routine patrol." Morrison felt the mission dynamics shifting. What had begun as simple surveillance was becoming something more complex. If Santos was correct about what she was observing, they might be witnessing the beginning of a major enemy operation. "What's your assessment, Sergeant?" Morrison asked. Santos remained motionless behind her scope. "Sir, I believe we're about to observe either a high-level meeting or a significant tactical operation. Either way, this intelligence could be extremely valuable. Morrison made his decision. Continue observation. Document everything you can. As Santos settled back into position, Morrison realized his team had stumbled into something much larger than expected. Whatever Santos's background truly was, her capabilities were about to be tested in ways that would reveal just how exceptional her skills really were. Take the shot, Morrison ordered. Santos settled into position with movements so controlled they seemed rehearsed. Her breathing became deep and rhythmic. Morrison watched her transform from soldier to precision instrument, every muscle aligning for the impossible task ahead. Wind speed, Santos whispered to herself, reading environmental indicators Morrison couldn't even see. Temperature differential, angle compensation. She was talking through calculations that most snipers would need computers to solve. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who had done this before many times. Under conditions where failure meant death for herself and others, Morrison found himself holding his breath as Santos made final adjustments to her scope. The distance was staggering. 3,470 meters meant the bullet would travel for several seconds before reaching its target. Wind, gravity, temperature, and atmospheric pressure would all affect the trajectory. On target, Santos whispered. The Barrett rifle seemed to disappear into Santos as she achieved perfect position. Morrison could see no movement, no tension, just complete stillness that suggested total control. Whatever training had created these capabilities had been extraordinary. The shot, when it came, surprised Morrison with its sudden violence. The Barrett's distinctive crack echoed across the mountains, followed immediately by the sharp whine of the bullet cutting through thin air. Morrison raised his binoculars toward the enemy position, knowing the bullet would take precious seconds to cover the impossible distance. Santos remained motionless behind her scope, tracking the shot's progress and observing the target area. Time of flight approximately 4.2 seconds, she reported calmly. Morrison strained to see the enemy sniper's position through his binoculars. At such distance, confirmation would be difficult even if Santos had hit her target. He found himself counting seconds, wondering if they would know immediately whether the shot had succeeded. Target eliminated, Santos reported with the same calm tone she had used all day. Confirmed hit, target is down and not moving. Morrison felt a mixture of relief and amazement. You're certain? Positive, sir. The target dropped immediately upon impact. No movement for 30 seconds confirms elimination. Morrison relayed the information to headquarters while Santos continued observing the enemy position. Her report was matter-of-fact, as if hitting targets from over 2 miles away was routine business. Morrison began to understand that for Santos it probably was. Sir, Santos continued, the elimination has caused significant disruption in the valley. Personnel are moving to investigate the sniper's position. We have approximately 15 minutes before they begin searching for our location. Morrison made rapid calculations. Their mission was complete, but the intelligence they had gathered was too valuable to lose. Can you continue observation while we prepare for extraction? Yes, sir. I'll maintain overwatch until you're ready to move. As Morrison coordinated with his team, he watched Santos work. The successful shot had not changed her demeanor at all. She continued providing detailed intelligence about enemy reactions and movements with the same precision she had shown all day. Commander, Santos said quietly, they're bringing in tracking equipment, dogs and electronic surveillance. Our extraction needs to happen soon. Morrison felt the urgency building. Santos had just performed one of the most remarkable feats of marksmanship he had ever witnessed. But the mission was far from over. They needed to escape before enemy forces could locate their position. How long before they can track us? Morrison asked. Santos observed the enemy response through her scope. 20 minutes, possibly less. They're organized and experienced. The elimination of their sniper has made them take our threat seriously. Morrison realized they were now in a completely different tactical situation. Santos's shot had saved their lives but also escalated the entire operation. Enemy forces were actively hunting them with professional tracker teams and advanced equipment. Sergeant, can you provide covering fire during our withdrawal? Santos began disassembling her rifle with the same efficient movements Morrison had first observed that morning. Sir, I can provide overwatch for approximately 2 kilometers of our extraction route. After that, we'll be beyond my effective range. As the team prepared to move, Morrison reflected on what he had witnessed. Santos had just made a shot that belonged in military history books. Her confirmed elimination at 3,347 meters placed her among the most capable snipers who had ever lived. But more than the technical achievement, Morrison was impressed by Santos's complete professionalism. She had performed an extraordinary feat and then immediately returned to the business of keeping her team alive. Whatever unit had trained her had created someone truly exceptional. The extraction would test Santos's capabilities in new ways. Morrison suspected she would continue surprising everyone, including enemy forces who had no idea what they were really dealing with. As they began their withdrawal, Morrison knew he was working with a soldier whose abilities extended far beyond anything he had previously encountered. The withdrawal began immediately. Santos moved with her team while maintaining awareness of pursuit activities behind them. Even while navigating difficult terrain, she periodically checked their back trail through a compact spotting scope. "Movement 2 kilometers behind us," Santos reported after their first hour of travel. 8 personnel with tracking equipment. "They're following our route but moving slowly due to the terrain." Morrison pushed the pace while Santos provided regular updates on their pursuers. Her ability to gather intelligence while moving impressed everyone on the team. Most soldiers would be completely focused on the physical challenge of the terrain, but Santos divided her attention effortlessly. The mountain path they followed was treacherous enough under normal circumstances. With enemy forces tracking them, every decision became critical. Santos's knowledge of the terrain proved as valuable as her marksmanship skills. "Sir," Santos said during a brief rest, "there's an alternative route that might give us better options." She pulled out a detailed topographic map that Morrison hadn't seen before. Santos had clearly studied this area extensively, marking routes and noting terrain features that could provide tactical advantages. "This path is longer, but offers multiple concealment opportunities," Santos explained. "More importantly, it leads to an extraction point that would be difficult for ground forces to approach." Morrison studied the route Santos suggested. It would add 2 hours to their journey but offered several defensive positions and escape routes. Her tactical thinking was as sophisticated as her shooting skills. "You've planned this thoroughly," Morrison observed. Santos folded the map carefully. "Sir, in my previous unit, extraction planning was as important as target engagement. Getting home alive required the same attention to detail as making the shot." As they resumed movement, Morrison found himself increasingly curious about Santos's background. Her skills in observation, marksmanship, tactical planning, and terrain navigation suggested training far beyond normal military programs. Whatever unit had shaped her had created someone with capabilities approaching special operations level. The afternoon brought new challenges. Santos identified a helicopter searching the area they had originally planned to traverse. Her alternative route kept them concealed while enemy aircraft searched uselessly for signs of their passage. "They're expanding the search pattern," Santos reported while observing through her scope. 3 aircraft now plus ground teams. Our elimination of their sniper has made this a high-priority operation." Morrison realized that Santos's shot had consequences extending far beyond their immediate mission. Enemy forces were treating them as a serious threat, deploying resources normally reserved for major operations. "How do you assess our current situation?" Morrison asked. Santos continued scanning while she answered.
"Sir, we're currently ahead of ground pursuit and concealed from air search."
"The enemy is responding professionally, but they're searching areas we've already left. As long as we maintain our pace and avoid detection, extraction remains feasible." Her calm analysis impressed Morrison. Santos was evaluating a complex tactical situation while navigating difficult terrain and monitoring multiple threat indicators. Her ability to process information and make sound judgments under pressure was remarkable. As evening approached, Santos identified their extraction point. The location she had selected offered excellent concealment and multiple escape routes while providing clear communication with extraction aircraft. "Sir, I recommend we establish position here and await extraction," Santos said. "This location offers good defensive positions and clear sight lines for identifying any approaching threats." Morrison agreed with Santos's assessment. As they settled into position, he watched Santos establish a perimeter observation post with the same methodical care she had shown throughout the operation. "Sergeant," Morrison said as they waited for extraction confirmation, "I need to ask about your previous unit. Today's performance suggests capabilities that go well beyond standard military training. Santos checked her rifle while considering her answer. Sir, I was assigned to a specialized counter-sniper team for 18 months. Our mission was to eliminate enemy marksmen who were targeting coalition forces. The training was intensive and the operational tempo was very high. Morrison understood immediately. Counter-sniper operations in Afghanistan had been among the most dangerous and technically demanding missions of the entire conflict. Soldiers who survived such assignments developed capabilities that few others could match. How many successful eliminations? Morrison asked. Santos was quiet for a moment. 47 confirmed, sir. Range varied from 800 to 3,347 meters. Morrison felt genuine amazement. 47 confirmed eliminations placed Santos among the most successful snipers in military history. Her longest shot of 3,347 meters was itself a remarkable achievement, but the consistency implied by 47 successful missions was extraordinary. Why did you transfer to communications? Morrison asked. Santos's expression became more guarded. Personal choice, sir. Counter-sniper work has a limited operational lifespan. I wanted to continue serving, but in a capacity that offered more long-term stability. Morrison understood. The psychological demands of Santos's previous assignment would eventually affect anyone. Her transition to communications represented a conscious decision to preserve her mental health while continuing to serve. As their extraction helicopter approached, Morrison realized he had worked with someone truly exceptional. Santos had demonstrated capabilities that few soldiers possessed while maintaining the professionalism and teamwork that made excellent soldiers invaluable. The mission was ending, but Morrison suspected Santos's story was far from complete. The extraction helicopter landed in a cloud of dust and rotor wash. Morrison's team boarded quickly while Santos provided final overwatch of their position. Even during extraction, she maintained the vigilance that had kept them safe throughout the mission. Once airborne, Morrison studied Santos as she secured her equipment. The Barrett rifle that had seemed so natural in her hands was carefully stowed, but Morrison knew he would never again see it as just another weapon. In Santos's hands, it had become something approaching a precision instrument. Back at base, the mission debrief revealed the full scope of what they had accomplished. The intelligence Santos had gathered from her impossible observation distance had identified a major enemy command structure. Her elimination of the enemy sniper had prevented what intelligence analysts confirmed would have been a successful attack on their position. Sergeant Santos, the debriefing officer said, "Your performance today was extraordinary. The confirmed elimination at 3,347 meters represents one of the longest successful sniper shots in recent military history." Santos accepted the recognition with the same quiet professionalism she had shown throughout the operation. Morrison noticed she seemed almost uncomfortable with the attention her achievement was generating. After the formal debrief, Morrison approached Santos privately. "You know this is going to change things for you. Word of today's shot will travel quickly through military channels." Santos was cleaning her rifle with the same careful attention Morrison had first observed that morning. "Sir, I just want to continue doing my job effectively." Morrison understood her reluctance to accept recognition. Soldiers who achieved legendary status often found themselves burdened with expectations that interfered with their ability to serve effectively. Santos wanted to remain a valuable team member, not become a celebrity. "What you accomplished today will save lives," Morrison told her. "The intelligence you gathered and the threat you eliminated made this one of the most successful reconnaissance missions we've conducted." Santos looked up from her maintenance work. "Sir, it was a team effort. Everyone contributed to the mission's success." Her response revealed something important about Santos's character. Despite possessing capabilities that few soldiers could match, she viewed herself as part of a team, rather than as someone exceptional. This attitude probably explained why she had been so effective in her previous unit. Over the following days, Morrison watched Santos return to her role as communications specialist. She handled routine duties with the same attention to detail she had shown during the dramatic moments of their mission. Her extraordinary capabilities remained available, but didn't interfere with normal operations. Word of Santos's achievement did indeed travel through military channels. Morrison received inquiries from special operations units interested in recruiting her. Santos politely declined all offers, stating her commitment to her current assignment. "Why are you staying?" Morrison asked her one evening as she maintained her equipment. Santos considered the question carefully. "Sir, special operations units have important missions, but they also have high operational tempo and significant personal costs. I've already served in that environment. Now I want to contribute in ways that allow for more balance." Morrison respected her decision. Santos had already proven herself in the most demanding circumstances military service could provide. Her choice to serve in a more sustainable role while maintaining her exceptional capabilities showed wisdom that many soldiers never developed. The Barrett rifle remained in Santos's care, but Morrison noticed she used it differently now, rather than the secret skill she had hidden when he first observed her. Marksmanship had become an acknowledged capability that enhanced their unit's effectiveness. Months later, when Morrison received his next assignment, he realized how fortunate he had been to work with Santos. Few commanders ever had the opportunity to observe such exceptional capabilities combined with such professional character. Santos continued serving as a communications specialist, but everyone who worked with her understood they were in the presence of someone truly remarkable. Her legendary shot at 3,347 meters became part of unit history, but more importantly, her example of professional excellence influenced everyone around her. Morrison often reflected on that morning when he had first observed Santos polishing her rifle. What had begun as curiosity about unusual maintenance skills had led to witnessing one of the most extraordinary demonstrations of military capability he had ever seen. Santos had proven that exceptional soldiers often hide in plain sight. Their remarkable capabilities revealed only when circumstances demand their full potential. Morrison felt privileged to have been present when those circumstances arose and Santos's true abilities were finally displayed. The memory of that 347-meter shot would stay with Morrison throughout his career, a reminder that the most extraordinary achievements often come from the most unlikely sources. Santos had shown him that heroism doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it simply appears when needed, performs brilliantly, and then quietly returns to the work of serving others.